aspiring to be patriarchs like what white men have, that isn't freedom. That isn't going to help anybody. It's certainly not going to help black people.
What black community? It's a black environment with black women and black children in it.
Hit that like button for me, y'all. What's going on out there? Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back. Appreciate you guys tuning in again. Want to have a quick discussion about a relatively controversial topic. You know what we do here. We get into sometimes dangerous matters over here. But I want to talk about this idea of Black privilege. You know, everybody talks about white privilege, white supremacy lately, as if that's really the thing motivating the country's spirit at the moment. But I want to talk about Black privilege, and I would like to at least maybe ponder at least, if Black privilege is actually really the name of the game. Black privilege is what we really do today, as opposed to so-called white privilege. Hit that like button, guys. Drop $1 in the hat. We're going to get to this in just a moment. Thanks for coming.
We could talk about them as being ice people as against the sun people, and that explanation is valid. Have no problems with it. We can talk about them in terms of their protecting their more recessive genes against our more dominant genes. We can even get into a little psychoanalysis and deal with the myth of length of penises and penis envy and all the other things, and black balls and white balls and brown balls and black holes and white balls rolling into black holes and things of this nature. And all that's fine. That's a lot of fun. But no matter how you explain why or how the European got to the point of victimizing us, I think the essential issue is that the European victimizes us because he can, because he has the power to do so.
You know, even since way before I was born, Black people who believe in all this oppression and all this white boogeyman theory have actually had the freedom to go about the country and speak openly about all this oppression and all these white boogeymen, which would kind of imply that the oppression isn't that oppressive and the boogeymen don't actually boogie that hard, but they persist nonetheless. And now we get up to the modern day version of that. And by the way, that was Kwame Ture, one of the originators maybe of the whole racism is power plus privilege kind of paradigms. You know, all these ideas, they really do have an origin point. You just kind of have to get into the weeds to figure out where they come from. But it started from there, and now we're here.
So what is white fragility and why should we care? White supremacy is a system that creates systems that privilege the outcomes for white people and things that really matter. Economic, health outcomes, the whole gamut. White privilege, I guess I think of privilege as the brain space that is unoccupied by concerns about race, by concerns about belonging, by any sense of racial imposter syndrome. There is a privilege.
Now, black people, according to this man, he is accusing white people anyway of never having to think about race or racial realities or whatever. But here's the thing. Don't black folk go to schools where they learn all kinds of, quote, black lessons, right? Don't they have ethnic studies programs? So it's like, aren't you training yourself? You're priming yourself for the very thing that you accuse white people of never doing. It's like, just because you're getting a master's degree in racism, it doesn't mean everybody else has to learn that, right? But that's kind of the charge right here.
Privilege to just be and think you got your job and your house and your resources just because you worked hard. And white fragility, I think, is the consequence of a white supremacist system with all of its structural design to prioritize outcomes for white people. The privilege that comes along with that supremacy leads to a fragility when that system is challenged. And you end up with folks defending a system that they think is good for them. If your success, if your well-being depends on a system that denies success and well-being to others, I think if a system is built in your name that has been so brutal and so dehumanizing that approaches genocide of multiple groups, and you've created religious explanations for it and economic theories to justify it, you're actually not free. Breaking that story, breaking that lie can lead to a sense of deep loss. And if you're fragile, you can't withstand that loss. But if you're resilient, get to the other side of those emotions and find some freedom in the collective liberation of us all.
And then we would see far more CEOs of companies be African Americans than white. We would see far more people being black pilots than white. We'd see far more black doctors than white. We'd see far more captains of industry than white, but we're not seeing that.
Not quite.
And we're not even seeing it in the percentage wise, Sam. It's just not working that way.
I can clarify this for you because first of all, if you're talking about CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, I mean that's a longer process, right? I'm talking about the hiring practices of all these companies, and I'm talking about the likelihood of getting the post you're seeking, right? So here's a claim that I think anyone in a position of authority in any major organization, certainly a high status one, anywhere in our society, will be able to authenticate for themselves. If you're looking for applicants for jobs, right, or admissions to medical schools or law schools, et cetera, or if you're in Hollywood, you're looking to staff a writer's room on your next sitcom, or you're looking for a cinematographer to shoot a great movie, right? Whatever it is, right? Again, these are high status jobs. I'm talking about looking for someone to bus tables in a restaurant. I'm talking about where people really want to get to, which the parts of the landscape where things are radically unequal, right? Where there's just kind of windfall profits if you can clear these bars, right? I think everyone will acknowledge at this point that if you have black applicants if it's a toss up with respect to their qualifications on paper, everyone's got the same scores, they went to, they got the same letters of recommendation, whatever it is, but you have one who's black and one who's white, right? You are positively advantaged being black now, and this is just a fact, right? And it's been a fact for quite some time. And everyone knows this, right? So this is the gaslighting to say that this isn't happening. For Ibram X. Kendi, who got $10 million from Jack Dorsey to open a bogus lab at Boston University, right? For him to be saying that we're suffering under this crushing burden of racism against black people throughout our highest institutions, and they go to the Aspen Ideas Festival and just serve this pablum to a largely white audience that just drinks it up because they love to be called racist, when they know they are desperate to hire qualified black employees at every point along the way to run their conferences, to write for their magazines, to edit, et cetera, et cetera. It's hypocrisy. And it's truly infuriating to everyone right of center because they know it's hypocrisy.
Now, this is a couple of years ago, but all the numbers kind of start to fly in the face of all these arguments about black people and their oppression in America and how awful everything in this country is right now. And so people who kind of try to push that line, they always wind up looking a bit tarted.
Today we're talking about equitable housing on college campuses. The idea of equitable housing is giving racial groups, safe spaces for their communities and their cultures. What do you think about that idea?
I think it's a good idea. If people of color would feel more comfortable in having like their own spaces where it's just like them and like groups of people like them, then I think that's a good thing.
So we have a petition we're getting people to sign today for black student housing here at CSUN. Would you be willing to sign this?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Would you be willing to sign this for us as well?
What would be the purpose of that? Because white people have privilege, so why would we need our own housing? People of color are people who are, discriminated against and face like injustice and inequity. White people do not have that problem. A white person in the U.S. has the utmost privilege over all races. We don't need like a white safe space. That's not necessary.
If they feel like they need that space, then why would that be wrong?
Why would a white person feel less comfortable in other races? That's their own problem.
Do you feel like it's a contradiction for you to advocate that other races?
There's such thing as reverse racism.
I'm not saying racism, but I'm saying you argue that other races can have their spaces if they feel like they need it, but not white people.
Yeah, that's because white people are privileged. We are at the top of the social hierarchy in the U.S.
One of the privileges I think that's most glaring is, it was just struck down, but affirmative action. So for example, students of color getting preferential treatment over white students. I feel like that's a form of racism.
Racism against white people?
Yeah.
Girl, no, white racism does not exist.
No, not even if black people are getting preferential treatment in school admissions?
That is just not, can I ask what's your political stance? Are you a conservative?
I am a conservative, yes. Is that a problem?
Yes.
Why?
Goodbye.
All right. Bye.
Nobody wants to run into that simple fact, though, that things just aren't the way they say they are.
As black people, and I'm calling out everybody black, we have to create our own black privilege. We have to. It's non-negotiable. What is this as black people? And I'm calling out everybody black. We have to create our own black privilege. We have to. It's non-negotiable. What does that look like? I was on a plane sitting first class. There was a little girl walked by me, she had her backpack on. She was so adorable, and she just kept staring at me. And I said, "You are so pretty." And she goes, right, she looked away. I said, "No, you are so pretty." And then I heard her ask her mom, like, about me sitting up front, right? What that means. Her mom said, "Oh, that's first class." And she said, "Mommy, why we can't sit here?" They're having this quiet conversation. Right. They get in their seat. I told the stewardess, "Go get that little girl." She said, "Which one?" The little girl that walked by me. She went and got the little girl. I said, "Listen, you have my seat if the mom's okay with it." The mom was like, "Absolutely." So I said, "She has my seat. Whatever she wants, order it." But my point is, I created black privilege with that. We have to start to create that. White people only have white privilege because they privilege their people. We have to start seeing our black people and privilege them. Yeah. We have to do that. That is something I'm calling out every black person to do. If you got a penny or if you got $1 million, figure out once a day what black person you can privilege. I don't care if it's your neighbor or if it's a family member. Please do that.
Equal. Now, of course, if they're qualified, open arms, but I can tell you the reality of our world today is not white privilege, it's black privilege. That's just the simplest way to say it. I will believe that the reality is white privilege when I hear about a black college senior saying, "How can I put my race down as white? Because that'll give me an admissions advantage to Harvard." In fact, Harvard until recently had about 16% blacks in its freshman class, if it admitted based on academic merit, there would be less than 1%. And
the class would be mostly Asian.
And Asians are being screwed.
Harvard University's admissions process discriminates against Asian American applicants.
They are being kept out. And this is a problem because we want to give people the incentive to succeed.
Whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender.
I think ties itself into knots to admit as many blacks and Hispanics as possible with test scores that would be automatically disqualifying if they were presented by whites and Asians. So this idea that racism and sexism are the things we should be thinking about most and that define everything and are the reason to tear down Western civilization, that now is the driving force in the world at large in the United States.
Are you worried? Are you worried that the backlash to what you just said will actually start a new type of racism when the average white kid or Asian, and you've written a bunch about this, when the average Asian kid is going to have to consistently score quite literally sometimes 20 percentage points higher than the average black or Latino kid, you could see why someone would become racist. Not you should not become racist, but the system will have reorganized.
Did he just say you could see why somebody would become racist? Like, is there logic to that now? Is that what he's telling me? Is there logic to being racist now? I never knew.
Organize things in a way that will breed resentment.
Absolutely. And it's only a matter of logic. All you have to ask is, well, why does every other group get identity politics and not whites? Whatever you view of that statement as a logical matter. Now, I guess they have the whole argument about, well, blacks can't be racist because they then define racism to be something accompanied by power. But if you're a working class white, you don't really feel like you've got a whole lot of white privilege. But, right now there's a professor in Florida who is under enormous pressure. He may have even been fired for talking about black privilege. And frankly, he's absolutely right. Again, if you're applying to Google right now and you're a black engineer, you've got it made. You can just write your ticket. You can ask for your salary. Same if you're applying to be a black chemistry professor at Berkeley or Caltech or Harvard. The welcome mat is open for you. Black privilege is real. And so it is quite logical for whites to say, or Asians to say, but Asians are kind of allowed ethnic identity, but if they can somehow claim to be oppressed as well. And it's very weird what goes on with Asian identity, where they kind of want to be students of color, and then the administration says, no, you can't be students of color because you're too academically successful. But you see this at UC Berkeley, where they want the victim status. But yeah, maybe it will happen. It's a question of sort of the Trump deplorables versus the elite whites and how.
And that's also part of the reason why everybody calls Trump racist, because as much as he is loved by a lot of just regular middle and lower class rank and file black Americans, he's hated by that kind of upper middle class college educated black elite, because their life almost depends on DEI programs and government grants and whatnot. They kind of get to exist in a parallel economy where they don't provide any actual productive service to any industry, but they make money being a part of the government network of programs and benefit policies and whatnot. And so when Trump comes and he just takes a machete to all these programs, he becomes their mortal enemy. And this is exactly why he gets called a racist or whatever. But it does kind of speak to this idea of something like a black privilege existing, because you wouldn't be mad if we weren't taking your privileges away if you didn't have any privilege to begin with. That's really what DEI and affirmative action boils down to, a series of legal and social privileges.
But Judge Davis thought the jury's recommendation was too long. She feels he hasn't mentally matured yet and never had a real shot at getting any help early in life.
But if you were to come in here and instead of being hurt and angry, which is what this court hears, right, as a 20-year-old African-American male that has been, experienced this society, etc., and you would show that, yes, okay, this is the situation. This is who I am. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in jail for forever.
Thompson repeatedly stated he did not care, not about his sentence, the victim, or her family. But Judge Davis emphasized she's the one that holds the pen, and regardless of what the media may think, she applies the law. To her, 65 years was an extremely long time. As she puts it, it's his whole life, one she doesn't believe should be spent entirely behind bars.
This court does not believe that Mr. Thompson, if given the resources that he can get while incarcerated, is beyond being rehabilitated.
Now, we have more than a few judges who are not only Black, but they get Black perpetrators in front of them who have committed all manner of heinous crime and severe just violence against people. And because these people are Black and the judges are Black, they let these guys, they get out early for whatever reason because they're Black. They get a life sentence for whatever reason because they're Black. And the judge is also Black, and the judge is the person making all this okay legally. Does that now mean Black people have privilege and power? Therefore, we can be racist just like the white people equation says, right? You told me that racism was privilege plus power. And if you have privilege and power, then does that mean Black people can also be racist? It's just a question. You don't have to all answer right now.
Why don't you believe that white privilege exists? I just want to get your understanding first, and then we could go from there.
Well, let's just, is there anything that you can't do that I can do?
No, we could do the same things if we put our minds to it.
Good. Then there's no white privilege.
Why don't you believe that white privilege exists? I just want to get.
Sorry about that. We have this graph right here. It's a little bit of a graphic kind of depicting the Black on white versus white on Black homicide rate. Not just the raw head count of homicides, but the rate, the overall percentage of how much is happening, how often. The Black line, the Black offender line is the blue line. The yellow line is the white offender line. So there's a white offender versus Black victim, and then there's a Black offender versus white victim line. Starting in 1980, the Black offender line is significantly higher than the white offender line, which is actually statistically remarkable considering that the white population, and especially in 1980, was maybe triple, if not double, the size of the Black population. By 1994, there was a spike in the white on, there was a spike in the Black on white, while there was actually a dip in the white on Black. So in the 90s, Black people, according to this chart, were more homicidally aggressive toward white people, while white people were basically taking a break. Interesting. The numbers went down after about 95, Clinton crime bill and all that stuff. Stayed relatively flat. Started to pull back up after 2005. They dipped again. That was probably around the 2008 recession. Everybody was too broke to go be murdering people. And then they spiked up again roughly around 2017. But the fact is, the black on white stayed significantly higher than the white on black, which makes you wonder, if you were living in such an oppressive, racially oppressive, white on black environment, why would they allow that? Why would they let that happen? How could that be true? Anyway, these are just some thoughts I was having. It's late. I am up now and I couldn't sleep. So I wanted to talk about that for a brief minute, but I'm not going to keep you guys here all that long. I just wanted to question the concept of black privilege really quickly. I didn't want to make a video out of this thing, but do me a favor, guys. Throw $1 in the hat. Like, share, and subscribe. We're going to wrap this one up right here. Thanks for watching.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.